Welcome to the arena. My name is Greg Sindelar, and today I'm joined by my very special guest, partner in crime in a lot of ways, the wonderful Governor of Texas, Greg Abbott. Governor, thank you for joining us.
Sure, great to be here on Greg Day.
On Greg Day, that's right. We just need one more, and we can have a club, right? Well, Governor, I really wanted to spend some time talking to you about school choice. Obviously, it's an important issue for us here at TPPF. It's an important issue to me as a father. But maybe I want to take a little bit of a step back and understand from you, why has school choice been such an important issue to you? This is, for a few years now, you have been just leading the charge and leading the way on this issue. And so kind of tell me about how that came to be and why this is something that you want to see across the finish line.
So I've traveled across the state for almost a decade now, talking to parents about this issue, and nothing stands out as much as the desire of parents being a good parent and wanting to be able to have what's best for their child. At the same time, for me as governor, I have this perspective of Texas always being number one.
Yeah.
And we're number one in so many categories. And I see our education landscape, and it is not where we deserve to be, not where we need to be. And so I look across the country and try to see what is it that causes a state to excel in education. And every place I look, it turns out that a component of successful education is school choice. And so I've been looking to put together in Texas the formula that's going to ensure that Texas is going to be on a pathway to excelling at education, while at the very same time making sure that parents are going to have the opportunity to choose the education pathway that's best for their child.
Uh-huh. Well, and I think that's so important because, as a father, right, like I bought my house because of the schools nearby, right? But I've also realized now that because I bought that house before I had kids, that every child is a little different, and what is needed for my oldest and my youngest is extraordinarily different. But if you don't have means, you don't have options. And at the end of the day, school choice is really about giving parents options to find the best education for their kids. Can you talk a little bit more about the legislation that's in front of the House? I guess the House will be hopefully voting out of committee tomorrow. But can you talk a little bit about how that creates more options and how that helps parents?
One of the primary ways it creates an option, it kind of relates to what you were talking about yourself. And that is, you bought a house and you lived in a certain zip code. And because of that zip code, there was a school that was assigned to you and your family. Same thing exists all across the state of Texas. The fact of the matter is there are so many families in the state of Texas, they can't say, well, I want Johnny in this school district over here. Let's up and move and go to that school district.
Yep.
That's possible for a few people in Texas, but not most people in the state of Texas. Nevertheless, you still have those parents that want to be able to choose a different option for their child for whatever reason. And what this legislation does is to ensure that every parent, regardless of wealth, regardless of income, regardless of zip code, they're going to have the same opportunity that a wealthy person would have to choose a school that's right for their particular child. And so this is truly a game changer for the overwhelming majority of Texans and Texas families and Texas students that will genuinely put their child on the most productive pathway for that child.
Yeah, and I think the way that can change education and change the trajectory of a lot of kids is going to be really important. And the way this bill is structured, right, is it's about $1 billion appropriation, and it'll help about 100,000 kids be in an ESA program to start. And that would be, as you said, the largest launch ever of a school choice program. Why is that so important to you, and why is it so important to also really think about how we grow this program over time? Because a lot of these programs have either spent years or even decades in some cases growing, but Texas is going to kind of come flying out of the gate.
So again, as I talk to parents and constituents across the state, one thing that they really wanted is universal school choice, meaning that it will be open universally to people of all different spectrums and walks of life. And what that would mean is that it would mean that we would start with a large number. And while 100,000 may sound like a large number, It actually is a small fraction of the total student population in the state of Texas. That said, it's a large enough number that I think is the right size for this reason. If we were to have like 1 million students in it, the ability to make that plan effective would be very challenging. We have to not only create a plan, we have to execute on that plan and execute from day one. And so I think 100,000 students allows a broad spectrum of parents across the state to have the opportunity to opt their child into school choice, while at the same time ensuring that the state is going to have the right size that we can manage from the get-go to make sure that we get this right. Our job shouldn't be to rush into it regardless of what the outcome is going to be. We have to design it carefully over the course of the next year and be able to implement it immediately in 2 school years from now and have that plan effective. And I think having it available to 100,000 students achieves both goals of having it open to as many people as possible while having the correct size for us to manage it, scale it, and execute with a well-developed school choice plan in the state of Texas.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, right? You always want to make sure that you do these things at the right pace so that you can actually scale it. I think that's a really, really well said. And I think importantly, right, we got to help parents understand there's kind of a new paradigm in education. And we say that the best way to improve educational outcomes is obviously you need quality teachers, you need quality curriculum, and you need engaged parents. So maybe talk a little bit about how this will improve that parental engagement and as we kind of give them some skin in the game when it comes to their kids' futures.
One of the most important determiners of how well a student does at school oftentimes comes down to parental involvement. It could be parental involvement with homework, with regard to after-school activities, basically with the parent just showing an interest in their child going to school can make a huge difference. And few things are as empowering to a parent and create engagement with a parent as much as school choice, where a parent gets to make such a pivotal decision in the life of their child about where they are actually going to go to school. And it means that a parent can and should stay involved, find out how things are going at that school, knowing that at any particular time the parent can say, okay, we tried this school, and this school may not be right for our son or daughter.
Yeah.
We're going to try a different school. And that's, again, what school choice is all about, is making sure that parents are going to be engaged and have the option to be able to make decisions about which school to send their child, including removing them from a school they've chosen and go to a different school if they think that's the right thing for their child.
Yeah, I think that's really good point. My oldest daughter has been in public and private school. She's actually in public school right now, but my wife and I, we take it year by year, and we determine each year, like, okay, we're going to continue in the public school, or are we going to go to private school? And then we've made that change and then gone back for various reasons that benefit her. But I think being able to think about it at that level, it really helps us ensure that we're making what we hope is the best decision for her future, which is
I've
really
seen
important.
that with parents across the state. I've gone to probably more than 100 communities across the state. Here's the point, and I talk to so many parents. They have like 3 or 4 kids, and they say one goes to public school, one goes to private school, one is homeschooled, and they say that for each one they have the right path for them. And the reality is, even within one family, children will be different, and the needs of that child will be different. And the parent knows those needs better than anybody. And that's why it's right for the state to give that power to parents, as opposed to government dictates that you can only go to the school that you live in that zip code.
Yeah. Well, I think that's right. And one of the things that we look at, right, is why this has probably caught fire is the educational outcomes aren't there. What people are expecting based on the amount of money being spent and the investment being spent in our public schools often isn't there. And not, as we said, not every school always meets every kid's needs. And even in the best school, there are kids failing in the very best schools, and not every school's right. But when you look at implementing this ESA program, what are the expected outcomes? What are your expectations when it comes to outcomes for students and parents?
Well, there's near term and long term, but outcomes is very important to me on this issue. As I look at our state and look at how we're number one in so many things, and I realized I'm the only governor in the history of Texas who said that we should be number one in educating our children. And that starts somewhere.
Yeah.
That starts here and now. And part of the pathway to become number one is for Texas to have school choice. And so an outcome here is going to be in ensuring that students are going to be on the best pathway for them because of parental choice. But what I've seen in other states is where they have school choice and improves outcomes in public schools. Easy example, according to the most recent study I saw, Florida, which I think has the largest school choice program in the United States, was recently ranked as number one for education, and it had the most public high schools ranked in the top 100. And so you can have the largest school choice program while at the same time have best high school public education programs. And that's the pathway I want to put Texas on.
Yeah, that's right. I always tell people it's not an either or, it's a yes and.
Exactly.
Yeah. And, I think an important component, as I said earlier about this, is teachers, right? How do you see a school choice program helping our teachers who oftentimes, there's discipline issues that they're seeing, there's pay issues that they're seeing. How could this program help them in their vocation?
So hardly anything could be better for a teacher and teacher pay than having competition for their services. And so the more schools we have out there, the more schools that are going to need good quality teachers, and there will be a bidding process to attract the best teachers, and part of that will involve working conditions, but also part of it will involve a good salary. Yeah. That said, it's an important side note to all of this, that we're working this session in addition to providing school choice, to ensuring that we've provided the best platform possible for public education by providing a record amount of funding for an all-time high for per student funding, as well as an all-time high in teacher pay. So we will create the best opportunity for public education to succeed, as well as the best opportunity for parents to choose the best education for the child. And in doing so, it creates the mixture of competition that will lead to better results for teachers in public schools, as well as teachers in private schools, as well as teachers in charter schools.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's going to be, one of the keys, right, is we got to get teachers back into the profession, or keep them in the profession. And we've seen far too many times that they either leave or they end up in administration, because that's the only way that they can actually increase their compensation. And so anything that helps on that, I think, will be welcome to many teachers. So we've talked a lot about what other states have done and how it's helped Florida and things of that nature. But no legislation is ever perfect, right? Maybe I'm so sure some of the legislators watching this might think that their legislation is perfect, but nothing isn't ever perfect. But I think maybe Texas has had the opportunity, since so many states, 32 states, I believe, have some sort of school choice program, to learn a little bit from that. Can you tell me a little bit about what we've learned from other programs that they've been implemented, and maybe how that you envision this program handling maybe some of the issues we've seen in other states?
It's so important to learn from other programs. It's important for us to learn from ourselves. This is the first time we tried school choice in the Texas Legislature.
Yeah, that's right.
And here's the point. In all the sessions we've been trying to do this is by far the best legislation that I've seen. It's a well-honed, well-crafted piece of legislation that benefits from prior sessions, but also benefits from seeing what's happened in other states. I can give you a couple of easy examples, sure. and that is there have been some very large school choice programs in some other states where they did the best job they could to make sure that they had it work as well as possible, but yet there was still, an aberrational example here and there about let's say a misuse of funds or something like that. But remember this: there are stories every school year about misuse of funds in public education, and so right. Perfection maybe never exists, and we should never let the perfect be.
When humans are involved, it never exists. Yeah,
and so what we constantly do is we look for examples of, let's say, missteps or problems that arose in some other states, and we calibrate for that in our legislation to try to make sure that we will make our state immune to those mistakes that occurred in other states. That said, we will get close to perfect, but perfection is something we constantly pursue.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really well said, and it's something that future sessions will probably continue to look at and not only grow the program but refine it.
And so, this is it's going to pass here in Texas this
right.
session. But it's not the be-all, end-all final product. It's something that we can continue to hone and improve every single year. Just like every session, we come in and work and hone and improve public education. We'll do the same thing for school choice.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So one of the things I hear a lot, I travel around the state as well a lot, and I talk to a lot of different groups. And the number one question I have is, how is this going to affect the autonomy of what I'm doing in my homeschooling with my kids, or what am I doing in with my private school? So you can talk a little bit about the legal protections, because a lot of people are worried about the government creep that this might bring into either homeschool or private school.
A very important question. So Texas probably has the best homeschool program in the United States. And a lot of parents who are involved in that program, they love it, and they do not want any government interference in it. And I want to make sure that every homeschooling parent, everybody who has any interest in homeschooling whatsoever, knows that the school choice law will not interfere with homeschooling in any way at all, period. A lot of people have come up to me quite literally in tears saying, you're going to destroy homeschooling.
Yeah.
Nothing could be further from the truth, because school choice, to be clear, is not going to interfere with homeschooling at all, period.
I think that's such an important point. I've made that point several times. I've had a lot of people worried about what's this going to mean for my private school or my homeschool. And I always refer them to legislation. I'm like, there's nothing in this legislation that would affect it. I was like, now, if you're worried about future, I was like, well, you should worry about every election, because you elect the wrong people, that could change as well.
And that's a good point in this regard, and that is, I know the members of the House and Senate, and they overwhelmingly support homeschooling. And I know that there's no way they would ever interfere with the homeschooling programs we have in the state. I also know the homeschooling advocates, and they are adamant and clear, don't touch a homeschooling.
Come and take it. Yeah, they feel that.
Exactly. And we're
I love it.
We're going to protect and preserve homeschooling the way that it is right now.
Yeah, love it. All right, last question. So when these programs take place in other states, and we've seen this happen most recently in Arizona and a few others, they become incredibly popular. They get oversubscribed. And, as we said, this will probably be around 100,000 kids that will be served. How do you foresee that we kind of responsibly grow this, and allow as many families as possible to take advantage of this?
So in a way, you identified the way that it should grow, and that's grow responsibly. Again, the program has to constantly succeed. And that means the only way that it can grow would be in a responsible way, so that we're able as a state to manage the program, make sure that there are no problems or flaws in it, and as we grow, make sure that we continue to prevent some of the failures that have seeped into some of the other states from seeping in to the state of Texas, while also at the same time ensuring that if there is demand for it, we will have flexibility to be able to grow into that demand in a very responsible fashion.
Yeah, and I think that kind of helps allay maybe some of the fears that people have about the explosive growth. But, I always tell people, it's like, you only have to worry about that if the public schools aren't serving you, right?
But along those lines, also, there's a massive misconception, maybe misinformation would be the correct way to phrase it, where some people say, well, this is just going to cause the budget to blow up. and that's impossible. There's no automatic increase built into the law, nor can there be, because under our Constitution, we can only spend money for a 2-year period. And so it's not like we're going to be spending $1 billion this year and $4 billion in 3 years. That's physically impossible to happen. It can only happen if the legislature agrees to that type of growth. It's not going to happen automatically.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, Governor, I appreciate you joining me today. I appreciate you being such a stalwart for the parents and the kids of this state. Before we go, I wanted to give you one last opportunity. Is there anything you would like to say, especially I think to the parents and the kids of this state, about this program and your goals on education?
So every parent should know that they're going to have greater opportunity than they've ever had before. Part of raising a child from the day the child is born is a parent educating that child in year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. And there's no rule that says when a child turns 6 or 7 that a parent loses that duty and opportunity to educate their child. It's a parent's responsibility to educate their child for the rest of their life. And now they're going to have the power to do that through education. At the same time, it's important for millions of parents and others, people across the state, to know that having a school choice program is not going to disrupt and destroy the public school system. Our public school systems are going to continue to thrive, just like they have in the more than 30 states that already have school choice. Just like charter schools haven't disrupted and destroyed public schools, the school choice program that's going to be only 25%, 1/4 of the size of charter schools, is not going to destroy public schools in the state of Texas either. So we can have both. We can have the best public education system as well as a thriving school choice system in the state of Texas that will ensure the best future for all of our kids.
Yeah, that's so right, Governor. I appreciate your leadership, and as we look towards the future, right, and really try to, I think, in a short amount of time, based on what's happening in this and other areas within the state, that Texas will be the leader in education, and it's thanks to your leadership. So thank you for leading the way. Thank you for taking this on. It's been a journey getting to this point, but you pushed hard last session. You campaigned hard over the interim, and I think we're very close to finally crossing that goal line. So thank you, Governor.
Thank you.
All right, and thank each and every one of you for joining us on this special episode of The Arena, and we'll see you on the next one.